Hello. Welcome. I am Melissa Gradle. I'm the Executive Director of Poets and Writers, and we are here to celebrate the 19th winner of the Jackson Poetry Prize, the extraordinary Cyrus Cassells. It is my pleasure to welcome you to the Greene Space. It's our second year here, and it's really exciting to see this wonderful turnout. A warm welcome also to those joining us remotely. There are many people listening in on the live stream. It's always a joy to come together in community to celebrate poetry, and never more so than now. Before we get started, I have some thanks to offer and some introductions to make. First of all, if you have not already done so, would you please silence your phone? Thank you. And as you're doing that, I want to extend a special welcome to Susan and John Jackson, Kimberly Jackson, and Alex Jackson. The Jackson family made this prize possible through a really extraordinary gift from the Liana Foundation. That gift established an endowment that supports one of the most generous awards for an American poet. This year, the Jackson Poetry Prize carries a monetary award of $100,000. Poets and Writers is truly honored to be the steward of this spectacular award and to partner with the Jacksons to celebrate contemporary poets with joy and largesse. Cyrus Cassells is the author, at last count, of 11 books of poetry, but that might be wrong because he's been very busy, and every time I talked to him, he told me something else was about to come out. A few highlights from his bibliography include The Mud Actor, which was selected for the National Poetry Series when Cyrus was just 24 years old. Soul Make a Path Through Shouting, which was nominated for the Pulitzer Prize and received the William Carlos Williams Award. Beautiful Senor, winner of the Lambda Literary Award and also a Pulitzer nomination. The Gospel According to Wild Indigo, which was nominated for the NAACP Image Award. The World That the Shooter Left Us, a Housatonic Book Award finalist. Is There Room for Another Horse on Your Horse Ranch? Named a Best New Poetry Book by the New York Public Library. Everything in Life is Resurrection, selected poems from 1982 to 2022, which was just published earlier this year and which we are happy to have copies for you tonight. And finally, Lorca to the Umpteenth Power is a prose and poetry memoir rooted in Federico Garcia Lorca's Granada, forthcoming in 2026. Cassells is also a translator, a film critic. He is the Regents and University Distinguished Professor of English at Texas State University and served as Poet Laureate of Texas in 2021 and 22. Cyrus will be in conversation this evening with Pádraig Ó Tuama. This is the second year that Pádraig has joined us for this event, and we are delighted to have him back. Listening to Pádraig, thank you. Listening to Pádraig talk about poetry is for me like one of those little folded paper flower buds that you put in water and then they kind of magically open up and expand and blossom. You may know Pádraig from Poetry Unbound, the podcast he hosts at On Being Studios, from his appearances on The Moth as well. He is the author of numerous books of poetry, most recently Kitchen Hymns, out now from Copper Canyon Press, which we're also happy to have copies of that for you this evening. In addition to poetry, his interests encompass conflict, language, and theology. He is a visiting scholar at the Center for Cooperation and Conflict Resolution at Columbia University. We are so happy to have you back, Pádraig. Cyrus was selected as this year's winner by a panel of 3 judges, the distinguished poets James Richardson, Patricia Spears Jones, and Chase Twichell. Chase is unable to be here this evening because she's teaching. She sends her warm regards to you, Cyrus. Jim Richardson and Patricia Spears Jones, both prior Jackson Prize winners themselves, are here with us tonight. Once the judges select a winner, we ask them to work together, which is tricky sometimes for poets, to collaborate on a citation for the winner. And so I am very pleased to invite Patricia Spears Jones to read the citation for us now. And then we'll hand it over to Pádraig and Cyrus.
Oh, this is so thrilling. So happy for you. All right. Cyrus Cassells is the most cosmopolitan of poets. His concerns and concepts range over both history and place, from the courage of Black students integrating Little Rock's Central High to memories of Holocaust survivors and discovering the power of duende in the Catalan poets. Cassells is an African-American poet at home in a larger world, observing political violence and sensuous experience with deep humanity. In a Cassells poem, brutality can be conjured with formal elegance, and an erotic encounter can leave a scar of sadness. Painterly, precise, simultaneously strange, and utterly familiar, his imagery is indelible. His language is inventive and delicate, jolting the reader by pairing words that seem never before to have been used in the same line. Quote, cold, dark, and stillborn grapes, unquote, quote, the choir of cliffs, unquote, quote, a hurrah of wheeling blackbirds, unquote, promontory wheat, unquote. In a world that is increasingly unstable, the brave compassion of these poems, both profound and hard-worn, is a rare and precious thing. They're intimate with pain, yes, with betrayal, racism, and cruelty, and they also show us how to recognize and protect the glimmers of hope that survive.
Good evening, everybody. I am so honoured and delighted to be here. Thank you to Patricia and to Melissa for your words up here, and to Susan and John for supporting this extraordinary prize. And Cyrus Cassells, once again, congratulations on being the recipient of the 2025 Jackson Prize for Poetry.
Thank you so much.
You began writing poetry in high school.
That's correct.
I read that about you. Can you remember any of the poem titles that you wrote in high school?
Oh, wow. No. I wrote bad imitation Plath poetry.
Oh, great. Tell us a little bit about that.
That frightened my parents. They thought poetry was a suicidal profession. So it was actually reading Ariel that made me interested in writing poetry. I thought I was going to grow up and be a novelist, but the power of Plath's final poems really jolted me. Oh, poetry is this really dynamic genre. So that's how I got started. So yes, it was like, it wasn't like hate mommy, hate daddy, but it was kind of like I'm not happy with mommy and dad, whatever. So it was like that. But I don't remember the titles. The earliest poem, The Women was the earliest poem that I remember, but that was in college. But the other poems I don't remember from high school.
And what was it that writing poetry did for you in high school? I'm particularly interested in this young person writing without any idea that, you know, years later we'd be celebrating you with all of these awards and then this one tonight. What was interesting you then?
Well, as I said, we were talking earlier, all I've ever wanted to be was an actor and a writer. And I was succeeding quite well as an actor even in high school. So I think it was just having emotional access that poetry can give you even when you're a teenager, when you're trying to figure out yourself and figure out your love troubles, and you know.
And Sylvia Plath was an influence. Were there any teachers who were influences, or did you?
I had some teachers who were kind and open to me writing. They loved the idea that I wanted to, write.
Yeah.
My first writing assignment, I think, was fourth grade. I did the class prophecy.
Oh, really?
I got to decide what everyone else in the class was going to become. And the weird thing was, when I got to Stanford, I was in this article about what I was going to be like in 2029 or something. It was very strange. Similar phenomenon.
Oh, interesting.
I said I was going to be feted at Cannes as a great actor and director and writer of poetry. So, I don't remember a lot of the specifics, but I just read a lot.
Yeah.
And I acted a lot. And I guess we weren't well educated in poetry when I was growing up. I just remember things like Longfellow and things that didn't have any connection to my life.
Yeah.
So when I read Plath, it was like, oh, wow.
And was that because of a class in school, or did you come across her in the library?
We didn't really have classes in poetry in school.
Oh, interesting.
We didn't have any real poetry education where I grew up.
Yeah.
In the Mojave Desert.
I'd like to hear some of your very early poems. I have a real interest in the first poem of the first book of a poet, and I wonder if you could read the first two parts of the childhood poem here. So this first really published poem as a college student is about my mother and my grandmother, and it's called The Women. My cotton shirts float on the line, this one from India, those from Africa, Guatemala. And suddenly, my grandmother appears in the South in a straw hat, gathering clothes before the rain. While the clouds stall, the sun sinks below a selvage of pine, and the dog days unleash their soporific heat. In the desert afternoon, my mother stands taking the cottons from the line. So I imagine them together, light-skinned, lyrical women, each one describing the same indelible motions, till I feel myself, through my mother's, my women's selves, pausing among the sudden colors, a fluttering of sheets, shirts, a childhood of breezes by the yard. The second poem is called The Magic Cat Bone. My maternal grandpa, Frank Willison, was a teller of tall tales and stories. The Magic Cat Bone. Granddaddy, since your death, I have been engaged in rewriting the family history. When an English exiled Jew married an African princess, all hell broke loose. If I could feel your laugh again. Always you sit on the porch with your Don Quixote slimness and griot's gift for charming a child. Even death can't stop your storytelling. I'm hearing Tar Baby, Brer Rabbit again, the woman who was slapped by a ghost, and my favorite, the Magic Cat Bone. Boil a black cat, you say, on the night of the full moon, then slip the bones gently through your lips. The one that slides smoothest is the magic bone. Granddaddy, in the world I live in now, we say we have no need of tales or talismans, but tell me, can the magic cat bone give me back the soul I had as a child? Yes, of course, you nod, waving the bone like a wand. And here I am again, eternally starting at strange sounds. Granddaddy, who's there? Haints of slaves, snowblind from the cotton. Thank you so much. Those are two parts of a longer sequence of poetry, opening up this award-winning first book of yours, The Mud Actor. How do you read these lines in a way that the younger Cyrus may not have known to read?
I'm not sure what you're asking.
Well, I have a feeling that sometimes our writing knows more of us than we know. And so looking back at those early poems now, the young man who wrote them was a conduit for something. I mean, you were also looking back to generations. What is it that you see now that the writer then may not have?
Before Alex Haley came along with Roots, I was like 8 years old asking a lot of questions. I had 2 sets of grandparents and a set of great-grandparents. And my great-grandfather, Victor, was still alive in his early 80s, and I just felt as I think a future novelist or writer that I wanted all the skinny on my family. So I learned from my great-grandfather, Victor, that I was the descendant of a slave woman in Virginia named Rachel. And since then, I'm gathering more information about my family history. One of the things I started this summer, I'm doing 3 novellas about the Underground Railroad. I discovered that my Cassells ancestors were Underground Railroad agents in Jackson County. And by a strange coincidence, I went to read at Marshall University last year in West Virginia, which borders Jackson County. And I didn't know my family was originally from that part of Ohio. So I really just wanted to learn family history before it was actually kind of fashionable. Because I think great-grandpa Victor thought I was just sort of being nosy or something. And it was kind of indulging me. And then Roots came along. There was like a whole, genealogical craze.
You talk about tales and talismans.
Okay.
Do you feel like poetry can be tales and talismans for holding us together?
Oh, certainly. I mean, the sacred quality of language to get us through various ordeals and traumas and things is really important. Always. I think for me, when I work with my students and I think about, again, the spiritual and emotional access that young people can get from poetry. It's so important to have that because young people's experience in America is constantly discounted. So when I work with freshman English students, or used to, I would tell them, 20 years of life experience is a lot. Why is this discounted in our culture? My students, as children and teenagers, have gone through things I'll never go through. So trying to get them to begin to write from whatever their vantage point is such a powerful thing to do there. So given that Al Young, who did not know me at all, came and asked me if I, when he was a judge for the National Poetry Series, he said, I heard you have a manuscript. And I said, yeah, but it's not done yet. He said, well, do you think you can finish it? I was really actually 23 years old when he came to me. So he had some kind of faith in me as a young person. When he told me that I won the National Poetry Series, it was at a friend's concert, our friends Tuck and Patty. He said, you don't know what you're getting into, but you're going to find out. It's like, you don't know what this is. So in other words, it's just that I think we just have to have more faith in young people's expression and point of view, and that they really have something to offer. And someone fortunately believed in me at that age. Right.
At that age, when was winning the National Poetry Series, was it a supportive thing, or did it put you into complication to think, what do I do next, or something else?
I didn't consider myself a poet or a writer. I was too young. I think the reason it took 12 years between The Mud Actor and Soulmaker Path Through Shouting, because I had to decide for myself if I really was that thing.
Yeah.
I was so determined to be an actor, I thought that was my destiny and my fate. And as I was telling Pádraig earlier, my acting coach at Stanford, I studied all 4 years. And just before I was graduating, she came to me, she said, Cyrus, I'm so worried about you. And I said, worried? Why? She said, I know I gave you A+ as an acting, but I think you're a writer and a teacher. And I was crushed, but it was true. Then 2 years later, that's real love and real insight, right? 2 years later, I won the National Poetry Series. So from 4 years of observing me, she came up with that. And it was so sweet when I look back on it. But of course, it was devastating.
Yeah, it's a complicated thing to say. She gave you direction, but it was hard to hear because you gave it so much time.
One thing she said, there was another actor she was sort of promoting that I didn't think was as good as I was. She said, oh, darling, acting's the only thing he can do. Which was really funny. I won't name names, but it was just like
afterwards.
Yeah. But I think it was really love. I think it was real love and insight there.
And she knew you.
Yes, she knew me.
Yeah. The way that you know your students as well.
Well, the thing about acting education, it's all about observation. And what's beautiful as a fellow student is that you get to see qualities in the people you know that, even their own families never get to see these sides of them. Of course, so it's a very particular type of education. It's really a great education, I think, just because Sheila wouldn't even allow us to comment for the first couple of years. We just watched our other students there. So it came from deep observation of me like, oh, I think you're a writer, right?
I read the acknowledgement section at the back of Mud Actor, and you talk about that some of the poems arose from psychic experiences. You reincarnational bleed-throughs is how you refer to them. That's what other people were calling them. Could you give a description about that? I have a few questions about it, but I'm curious if you could give us a brief description about what that was like.
Happening in college. I met certain people in my life, and the result was I kept having all these dreams that came true the same day, and a lot of, I would call it precognition. And so I ended up going to, believe it or not, the world's most famous psychic, Sylvia Browne, and she regressed me under hypnosis, and I came up with some very interesting material that was completely unflattering of me. Cyrus, the first things I witnessed were horrible poverty in the street in India, which made me like, wow, it was like a movie. So I was exploring that in that stage of my life. And when I wrote this book, I was serious enough that I went to Dr. Ian Charleson, the most, I think he was like a prominent reincarnation research person. But he told me that he only worked with young people, children there. So I was exploring all of that.
Yeah. And in what way were those things useful for your poetry? I can hear the imagery of it, but what other ways?
It's complicated because, often these things are like trauma floating to the surface, right? Obviously, in the Hiroshima poem, that was about that.
Yeah.
It seemed very incredible that I would remember all of that, but I did. Huh. Lucille Clifton held my hand. She said, "Oh my God, Cyrus, you really did die there." I go, yeah. I really did. Some portion of my soul. I have the complete memory of it. So fortunately, as a young person, I was sort of brave enough, I guess, to share that because I thought it was significant. Yeah. Since then, any kind of, quote, reincarnational bleed-throughs I have, I don't necessarily say that's what they are, but they come from that. They come from dreams. Yeah. A lot of times. But I don't feel the need to prove anything. I felt like I had this empirical need to prove that I had died as a teenager there in Hiroshima. I was just a visitor there for 3 days, from what I remembered, right? Yeah. My mother had sent me and my siblings from Tokyo, which had been firebombed, and we were sent to stay with her uncle there just a few days before it was bombed there. So that was a lot for someone my age to kind of contend with. What happened was I went to Japan as an exchange student the summer of 1978, and my dreams were like so clear about this city and the bombing and what I could see and remember there that it began to seep into that poem. Right? It was a very it took a couple of years for all this to unfold there.
I mean, I've been reading your work in preparation for this and then reading the judge's citation too. And like your work is suffused with an extraordinary and I think demanding sympathetic gaze to the world, to the suffering of the world. And I mean, it occurred to me when I saw about those bleed-throughs that those were the same kind of thing, an imagination that goes wide out into the world. And with that, a characteristic of you is that you use beautiful language to describe devastating things. There's a confrontation in all of that.
Well, I didn't think about that until I got a review from Publishers Weekly talking about those qualities. I still need to have other people tell me what's happening in my poetry in terms of the combinations of it. I really believe in beauty, and I don't think it's very fashionable in this time period to have a belief in beauty of language and sound, and all of that is healing. I think that's a lot of it. But I do believe in the beauty of words and language still. Always. It's just important to me.
Yeah. I wonder if you could read from the poem Jasmine on page 38. This is a poem about beauty. So much of it is from the book The Gospel According to Wild Indigo.
It's one of my favorite poems. I wrote it walking around the Villa Pamphili in Rome, which is like my favorite park in Rome. And let's see, which page did you say?
Page 38.
38. My selected poems goes backwards. That's why I'm like, okay. Jasmine. These are the days of jasmine in Rome, when headlong, emboldened April has dissolved, and the joyous braiding of sun and rain brings this sweet, steady broadcast. When I step from the supper time train, that's what greets me. Roman hedges and walkways, graffiti-laden precincts graced with pallid fireworks, so even the most tumble-down niches seem breeze-swept, festive now with fragrance. Jasmine, the elating moment's shibboleth, the cool, enrapturing night's cavalry. Even crone glorious Daria, my terrace-loving neighbor, confides, when Galliano came back from the front, his right hand was bandaged, but in his uninjured one, poet, he held a fistful of jasmine he picked along the path to my door. How could I not become his wife?
I love this poem so much. First of all, there's the heady scent of jasmine. I felt, the first time I read it, I felt like I could smell some jasmine in the air. It's so evocative. To speak formally about the way that you use work in this poem, you use a lot of very particular adjectives: headlong, emboldened, joyous. I mean, they're not just adjectives, but they're descriptives. Can you speak about your choice to bring the heady language to describe the heady smell?
Someone once said I was the king of adjectives. Or my friend Suzanne Gardner, like, you'll pick 3 adjectives. Why don't you just pick 2? And I just have to cram them all in there. I know that the rule is that you shouldn't use adjectives so much. Maybe I'm not sure, but I'm very kind of lush with the adjective.
You are lush with the adjectives,
yeah.
But it works.
But I actually think of the 3 adjectives almost at once, like,
Yeah.
like that. That's the way my brain works.
Yeah.
There.
Well, it really does work, especially in a poem like this, where it is about the heady experience of it. And
It was one of the happiest poems for me that I've ever created. It just felt so good
yeah.
to find the language and have that story. I don't even know where the story came from. I was just walking around. I thought, what's this Galliano person and this romance? Oh, let's put that in there. It's just wonderful somehow how a narrative floats into
Yeah.
a lyrical poem like
Yeah.
that sometimes.
Crone glorious Daria. I like her so much.
I just want to celebrate older women, and that's how crown glorious seemed like a new adjective. Right.
You have a long love of Italy. You speak the language very well.
Yes.
Could you tell us about that?
Italy's my muse, apparently, because every time I go there, a new cycle of poetry comes out of me. So I went years ago, like early 90s. I don't know why I got the idea to even study Italian in Boston, but my Boston tutor was connected to a school in Florence, which is considered one of the best languages schools in all of Italy. So I just accidentally got in to one of the best schools. So when I mention it to Italians, they're very impressed, as if I had gone to Yale or something. It's like, oh, well, you went to that school. So I was just exploring at that point in my life. My long relationship was sort of starting to dissolve for various reasons that had to do with our careers separating, and my partner went off to Afghanistan, and I ended up going off to Italy there. So, but every time I go back, there's a new cycle. So 2 years ago, I got a fellowship at the Civitella Ranieri Foundation in 2020, and then I had to wait for 3 years before I could actually take it during the pandemic. So I had planned to work on some other things, and then I challenged myself to write new poems. So now I have almost all of a new book called A Poet is Cousin to Life Itself, which is inspired by Pasolini. So it's a lot of it. It's an unusual book. It's really narrative poems inspired by my literary mentors, Giorgio Bassani. My personal mentor was married to the partner of Giorgio Bassani. So the Garden of the Finzi Continis is in the book. Bertolucci movies are in the book, like the Il Conformista. A lot of it's happening in fascist Italy in the 30s, which I thought was a bad sign, even 2 years ago. So this is what I tell everyone about writing poetry. My poetry-making self is exactly 2 years ahead of my life, right? Whatever it's coming to me fully lands after 2 years, which is the case here with the fascism and stuff. It's I don't know. It's an unusual book. Yeah. It's not like my other books. It's not like what other people are doing right now. It's a strange book. But it pushed everything else out. All my other projects stopped for this Italian book to come through there.
Oh, interesting. And what is it about the Italian language that appeals to you so much?
It's the most fun language to speak because of the hand gestures. It's so strange, when I first moved to Italy, to see little kids like doing all the hand gestures just like adults. And then you think, of course they got it down at age 3 or 4 or whatever. And they're like, so it's just more fun than other languages. I'm naturally more attracted to French, but and I didn't learn French until I went on my first sabbatical when I was in my 40s. But internally, I think French appeals to me more than any other language.
Yeah.
Right?
In 2022, you released the book, The Word That the Shooter Left Us. I wonder if you could read the title poem.
All right. Yeah. Which is unfortunately relevant almost every day in the United States, right?
Yes.
So this is
on
poem,
page 10, yeah.
This is a poem about how the father of my personal assistant was shot and killed picking up his mail from a Houston post office by a Latino lawyer, actually. And there were no surveillance cameras, so for a long time, they didn't even know exactly what happened. But this man claimed that there was a struggle. And then eventually the forensic evidence, he got convicted of murder based on... So he just shot my friend's father as he was holding his mail. So I wrote this poem, and I waited a long time, and I asked the family if I could share about it. And it happened to another family. I guess if y'all remember in Florida, something similar. So I decided I needed to say something publicly. The world that the shooter left us. In this one, ladies and gentlemen, beware, be clear, the brown man, the able lawyer, the paterfamilias, never makes it out of the poem alive. The rash all too daily report, the out-of-the-blue bullet, blithely shatters our treasured legal eagle's bones and flesh. In the brusque spectacle of point-blank force on a crimson street where a revered immigrant plummets over a contested parking spot, and the far-seeing sages insist, amid strident maenads of at-the-ready patrol car sirens, clockwork salvos, the charismatic Latino lawyer's soul is banished elsewhere without a shred of eloquence in the matter. And the brute churning surfaces of the world, they bear our beloved citizen away, which means austere saints and all-seeing masters. If I grasp your bracing challenge at our life's most brackish hour, our highest mission isn't just to bawl, but to turn the soul-shaking planet of the desecrated parking lot, the anti-miracle, the blunt, vitriolic white man's unnecessary weapon, and the ruse of self-defense into justice cries and ballots, into newfound pledges and particles of flight.
Thank you. You said you waited a long time to be able to write that poem. What were some of the things you were waiting for during that?
Permission to speak, really? Which is true for all of us. I mean, that's the hardest battle for us when we really want to express ourselves. But I don't know, it wasn't just outrage, it was just also trying to make sense of the world in some way.
Yeah.
There's some really, I mean, I'd only heard about Eddie's father just before. Another colleague of mine said he was incredibly respected Latino lawyer. And I had an opportunity. I had friends who were on the Houston paper. I was still overseas. This was all happening while I was overseas, and Edward was in my house, and then I had to move to Houston because nobody knew what was going on there. So all I could do was contact my friend and say, "Can you talk about this incredible Latino family and this thing is happening?" And they, so it was over a handicapped parking space, I guess. His father had parked there, and it was late at night, and he ran in to get his mail, and this person had raged out of control. And they're still actually unrepentant about it, even in jail. So I guess it was just wanting to do something somehow, and feeling sort of helpless about it. And then sort of finally language came. And when the poem was published in Poem a Day, it was the week of another sort of shooting. I think it was in Pennsylvania in a synagogue there. So as the shootings have been piling up, and even this week, it's just something I felt it was time for me to address. And the title is that feeling like once you've been close to the violence, your life is never the same.
Yeah, the world is, yes. What's your feeling about, we spoke about the language about this beforehand, but the imperative to justice or the moral call of language through poetry? How does that sit with you as an artist and as a citizen and as all of these things, as African-American man in the United States?
Well, I was about to say, as an African-American man, I'm always going to be interested in justice. I come from a very distinguished African-American family, and I know many people can't tell that I'm actually African-American, but my father desegregated West Point when he was a cadet. My Uncle Bill, my mother's brother-in-law, was the president of the Tuskegee Airmen. My father's brother-in-law was a physician for Dr. King, and my cousins grew up being the best friends of Dr. King's children. So I come from this, I would say activist family, even though my dad was in the military, but I don't think my father had any illusions about racial dynamics in the military. So what happened was when he arrived, I think it was 1950 or 51, he and 6 other black cadets, so they didn't find this out until my dad died. Someone called me up and, was putting together the memorial. So they refused to room with each other, and they stood outside of the rooms for hours, and eventually the brass let them have, room with other people. But I didn't know that while he was alive. Our parents have this way of keeping us from their past trauma and pain. And for many people, that was perhaps the most significant thing he did in his life.
Yeah.
Right? So my parents had been dead for quite a while. My father died in 1999, my mother in 2006. I've had to kind of piece a lot of things together. But yeah, justice is really important to me.
Yeah. I mean, in the citation that Patricia read, speaking about your poems, they're intimate with pain, yes, with betrayal, racism and cruelty, and they also show us how to recognize and protect the glimmers of hope that survive. Thinking back to the acting teacher who noticed, and your training in acting to notice, and the ways that your poems notice fearlessly and go with beautiful language, but also language that's not hiding behind beauty. That must have a high cost for you personally, or maybe not.
I don't know if I thought about it that directly before. Yes, empathy is what my poetry is about, and empathy is what my acting training prepared me to, observe in life, and to, psychology and empathy. And even I, at some point, as I was kind of growing into being a poet, realized that empathy was really at the center of my work. Right? Even when I was hearing this, to tell myself, I want to be able to identify with everyone who ever has walked on the earth. All of everyone. And feeling like I'm connected.
Yeah.
And a world citizen. Which is why, my sense of being an American is really connected to being a world citizen. It doesn't stop there. It doesn't stop with this time period. So you could say maybe the reincarnational bleed-throughs come from whatever that as well. Like, I want to relate to everyone in history. And I was thinking earlier today about how we're trained as men and how I had to train myself to cry on stage. I used to have a friend who was very cynical about acting, and he was a son of big Hollywood producers. Oh, you're going to get dollars for your tears, but I had to play a real person whose son was executed for kind of like a car robbery before the Supreme Court had the cutoff. So I knew it was important in the play that I cry. And fortunately, they cast this young man who was wonderful, played this Napoleon Beasley. And I learned to cry on stage, and I realized that so much of our training, our masculine training, is not to, but the acting training is the reverse. You have to have the emotional access there. So.
And does that cost you, or is it rewarding?
Let me finish my whole thought, which is that the earth is a place of passion and emotion. The earth is a schoolhouse of emotion. Many of us are trained for various reasons to move away from emotion, but we, as actors and poets, get to the juicy stuff. I don't see the point of being in this world if you're going to have to feel your way through everything that happens to you your whole life. There's no getting away from it. For some reason this week, bits of 1979 are floating in with Undonna summer music. It's just like, and the people are there, it's like, what are you trying to tell me? They're haunting me somehow. But everything, you're going to have to feel everything that's ever happened to you. And we're really bad at that for the most part. And it makes it difficult for us to be present with each other because we weren't present with the other moments, right? A lot of my spiritual training is just about presence, about being there. So, yes, I feel that emotional access is what this world is about for us.
Yeah.
Why not just be in spirit or in another universe than this one? So we poets and actors get to really dive right into it. Like, okay, I'm here for the emotions. But as men, we're not trained that way at all. We're trained to rip out our hearts, and there's no way you can survive this world ripping out your heart. There's just no way.
Oh.
It just leads to illness and all sorts of things. So we're lucky that we have a tool to experience our feelings, right? I think it was Jory Graham who said one time that we think we've gone through experiences, and then the poem comes and it tells us we only lived through them partially. I find that all the time.
Yeah.
Right? So I guess I'm saying hooray for emotion, hooray for passion,
Yeah.
hooray for poetry and drama that allows us to feel more deeply. You know, that's what I felt like my goal was as an actor, to help the audience and myself feel more deeply.
Yeah. Your 1997 book, Beautiful Signor, won the Lambda Literary Award, and I wonder if you could read the poem on page 70, The River God. This continues on the conversation about masculinity.
Okay. Well, my goal with Beautiful Signor was to create a honeymoon book for queer people after we were being attacked in the arts, and this is early 90s. And it was about my first relationship in Florence. I dated a much younger man who had gray in his hair. So I thought he was my age. I was in my 30s, but he was actually 23 and still in the Army. So our relationship took place a lot in his car. Seriously, there are places you park in Florence. You know, everybody lives with their family. You just put up your little cardboard in your car and you have your little hotel. So when you asked me to read this poem, I kept thinking, all I can think of it is Cosimo's body. Okay, anyway, little confession. The River God. On a Sabbath walk, we learn both of our first loves died in our youth. We stray off the road in the simmering dusk, in the coppice's wild quiet, our discomfiting clothes scattering, a little flurry in the lizard kingdom. Your skin in a matchless garment of shadow, evocative of a statue in a spare museum room. Michelangelo's model of a river god. Like us, the Renaissance genius puzzled why rustic deities and lovers sally into love, arrayed only in flesh, bruisable flesh, if the tournament's end is always willowy mourning. Against the undertow, your body, siphoned for a while of sorrow, will I ever love you more than in this place where voices of reproach can't reach us? All the meshes of dismay, your irrepressible cry, navigating the insurgent thighs, Buonarroti bends to fashion out of clay.
There's such sensuality and such luscious attention to love and flesh and body in this. And you wrote it in the early 90s, you said, was published later on.
Yeah, and the sense of his body is still so strong. I'd forgotten this like 30 years ago. So when you asked me this poem, it's like, all I'm seeing is Cosimo's body. So I guess I memorialized it well. He was about the only out queer person I met for years. He belonged to Archie Gay, which is the public gay organization in Italy. So he was a highly unusual person.
Yeah.
And then he was had to go back to the barracks. I mean, I knew him after that, but it was a strange combination of things.
Yeah.
And just the physicality, you know. I didn't grow up, you know, having sex in cars or whatever, so this was a new Italian venture.
I mean, there's an unapologetic, as it should be unapologetic, celebration of love. And this was the 1990s, which were threatening years for queer people.
Well, I wanted to create, here's the story. It's in the book, too. When I first came to Italy, I was on a plane. It was the worst plane flight I've ever been on. You know, really serious turbulence, and I thought we might be killed. So we woke up in the middle of the night over the Atlantic, and everything was knocking around. And all I had in my hand was this little, a friend of mine had given me the love sonnets of Shakespeare in a little tiny hand-sized version. And I really said, you know, God, if I can survive this, I'll try and write some love poems. I had encouraged my students to write love poetry, but I had never really done it myself. So it's part of my bargain with God that I wrote Beautiful Signor. It was really weird because the man next to me had totally ticked me off. I couldn't stand him. And he had gone to the bathroom to the terrible turbulence, so I was so worried for him. And then we sat down and we actually bonded. It reminds me of this story, a more serious story that Carolyn Forche would say about the person beside you becomes your sister or brother when you really think you're going to die. And I thought, oh my God, if this is the person I'm going to die with, I better be like nicer or something. True story. Since my dad was an incredible pilot, and this person also, we knew that we were seriously, we talked about it. Say, yeah, we fly all the time, but that was like serious trouble. I go, yeah. It's not something you want to have happen. It's like the nightmare moment, but that's where the book actually came from, right?
It's wonderful. I like the idea that that lover was sent as a result of your prayer. Whatever God you were praying
I need
to.
to stop having prayers because I went to Rapa Nui and I asked for someone to show up while I watched the Stoneheads, and someone showed up.
Okay, there you go.
So, but sometimes you just want a companion to experience things with.
Yeah.
No, it was a very exciting period. I was just beginning to learn Italian, and anyway, I should probably track him down someday and find out what happened to him. But seriously, he was an activist, and other people weren't.
Yeah. I want to think a little bit about this new poem of yours that was referenced, Lorca to the Umpteenth Power. Could you tell us a little bit about this collection, what you're doing in it, how you're stitching things together? Well,
Lorca's been my favorite poet since I was a teenager. My most important teacher was my Spanish teacher, Concepcion Horba, so she had me reading Lorca's poetry when I was a teenager. And my actual high school graduation present was the collected poems of Lorca in that famous leather-bound volume of his there. So my friend Ellen Hinsey, an incredible poet, said to me, and a couple of other people have said that, said, Cyrus, you're the closest to Lorca that we have in this age, so you need to be the person to write about Lorca. And so the book is about my 5 pilgrimages to Granada. When I was translating Catalan poetry of Salvador Espriu, I went to Lorca's house in the fall of 1984. Nothing for Lorca there. Absolutely nothing. It didn't make any sense because I was, taught that he was the greatest Spanish poet and playwright. I didn't understand the Spanish Civil War dynamics. I didn't understand that the people on the left were murdered at the beginning of the war when Franco came to power, including Lorca's brother-in-law, who was a socialist mayor. And this was 1984. Franco had only been dead for 9 years, so I didn't understand that it was all politics. So I didn't go back until 2012. So I come back, and the airport is Federico Garcia Lorca Airport. Federico Garcia Lorca Park. It was completely, the house that was empty. So the workers it was an orchard that used to be outside of town, and now it's almost in the center of town. And I said, is this Lorca's house? They said, yes. But no, nothing, just dogs barking and workers. So now there's a park, and so the book is prose of my 5 pilgrimages and all the poetry to Lorca and inspired by Lorca over the years. So it took me about, 13 years to pull it together. I'm very, very lucky. I wanted to get special art for it, so I chose the art of Octavio Quintanilla, who is now the 2025 Poet Laureate of Texas, an incredible visual artist, because I felt his art matched up with Lorca's actual visual art the most. So I just turned in the book, and it's 16 pieces of art, and Octavio has done a piece of art for each of the prose chapters. And I'm very excited because I always wanted to do a book that contained more art there. So it's prose and poetry. It's a little hybrid project there.
Yeah. That's great to hear the introduction to it. You very kindly sent me a PDF of some of it. Would you be happy to read a little bit of this? And then I've got one other question after this. From the upcoming book.
From the what?
This is from Lorca to the Umpteenth Power.
Oh, yeah, sure, sorry. I'm sorry. Okay. Sorry, the live stream. My family and students. This is a poem it's from a sequence about flamenco dancing and what's really going on in flamenco. And for some reason, I always associate flamenco with the deer community, with antlered animals and deers. It's called Black Sounds, the zest. I don't know if you're familiar with the concept of duende, people. I know the writers are. It's a concept that Lorca popularized that has to do, it literally means, I think, like goblin in Spanish. This idea that if a performer is performing with particular charisma, they say that person has duende. Like my teacher when I was young said I had duende, right? And the only thing I could think of that had duende was I used to dance in front of my family to Ravel's Bolero, like a dervish. No, seriously, this happened, like a dervish. So it was like a form of family entertainment. My family, oh, my son, he does this dance, like, let's see. And I never got dizzy. I could have been a Sufi. So it's in that realm of mystic performance, right? Black sounds, black sounds. And then the spirit of the deer enters your audacious flamenco Jacinto. He's the dancer person in the sequence. Your cells and sinews become its luxury, its meadow, its fleeting, heaven-reaching horns a candelabra. So that if your heart were bared, it would be the heart of a stag. The dark coins of your nipples in my mouth, the point-blank fur of your chest, plush as a meadow, restive, the headlong cogent hips, the brash fire of our commingled breath, hushed for now, voluminous hunger. This is a quote from flamenco lyrics. In the street of winds, I devoured you down to your beauty mark. In the street of hurly-burly. Voluminous solace, and at the core, flameless delight, all-out reverie. What I felt as a sword-brandishing boy, captaining the commode, as my fledgling brothers and I, miniatures of the chivalrous Three Musketeers, aimed in unison. So living in a family of three boys, right? Rapt actors in a trance. Jacinto, whatever possesses children, whatever possesses lovers, youth and animals and black sounds.
It is such a rich and evocative and fantastic poem that from that book that's coming in the middle of next year.
We're trying to get it to come out on Lorca's birthday, which is the 5th of June. Aiming for that.
Wow, wonderful.
Lorca was a Gemini. Are we surprised? No, we're not surprised.
My last question is based on the last paragraph of the acknowledgement section from The Mud Actor on page 80. I wonder if you'd read the last paragraph. I found this very evocative. It starts with, I can no longer accept. And it felt like a statement that I thought I'd love for people to hear in an award that honours your entire writing life, to look at the precision and beauty in this extraordinary paragraph. And then to hear you talk about, I'd love to hear you speak about this paragraph now, but also for us to hear it.
I can no longer accept a world view that offers no hope, that denies all evidence of spiritual heritage or survival. As a poet, I can't offer any more or less than rumors of her own indestructible beauty. I'm sorry. It's making me cry. Actually, can you finish it for me? Yeah. I can't believe I wrote this when I'm such a young person.
It's extraordinary. As a poet, I can't offer any more or less than rumors of our own indestructible beauty. We have to find and touch our indestructible selves to fight the illusion of powerlessness, of final negation. We who have the genius, the power to darn our world. We who are both human and divine.
Thank you. Thank you.
Such beautiful words. you knew yourself.
I guess I did.
Yeah.
No. I remember meeting Jane Hirschfield when we were the year later in Yaddo. She said, "You found your voice at a remarkably young age," and I was really moved that people feel that. And when I read it now and hear it, I think, "Oh my God, I can't believe I said those things." But
what is it that you can't believe?
I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I was a very serious young person, and I'm a not so serious older person. My father used to call me Sirius instead of Cyrus, and seriously. So here's what happened. When I was a chair of the LA Times Book Prize, a poetry man came up to me and said, "Are you related to Cyrus Cassells of Detroit?" I said, "Yes, that was my dad." He said, "Oh, your father was legendary. He was the smartest person who's ever in our school. When we were growing up, people used to say, maybe you too can become like Cyrus Cassells." So it was very humbling because I thought all my book learning and all that was just from me. But because my father was in graduate school when I was a child, I think I got used to this idea that people read all the time. People talk about my vocabulary and reads, but I think that's what I thought humans did because Daddy was getting his master's degree. But he forgot when I was this book, nose in the book child, that I actually probably got it from him. So that's what this meeting reminded me of. It was like, oh yeah, that's right. My parents were super smart.
Yeah.
It didn't all, I didn't just pull it out of the hat, right?
But I mean, as we finish, it's moving that we started off by talking about your granddad and the mothers, the women who had mothered you in an ancestry, and in talking about this young person that wrote that extraordinary paragraph in an acknowledgement section, you're referring to your dad now. You're bringing him into the room. I'm interested in how it is that there's in the intimacy of that, there's also a profound public and political and justice-based reminder that beauty might be one of the things that can support us in difficult times.
Well, it's what I reach for
Yeah.
all the time. A lot through music. My brothers are musicians. Through painting and art. I'm a film critic, and my degree's in film, so mostly what I've been doing here is watching movies because I haven't been in theaters a lot. So art, I just can't imagine my life without art and beauty. And somehow, even as a child, I had this sense of that it was a sacred path to be an artist. And even though my mother was a strong reader and went to Howard, went to college with Toni Morrison, my favorite writer, and Roberta Flack. I get to see the yearbook with them at the kiddie ball and whatever they were doing. So, and my mother's family, they're Howard educators. They're the Blackburns. So I remember, here's a funny story. So when my book was chosen for the National Poetry Series, my father said, son, I'm eating crow. Never thought any money would come from this poetry, but your first check came in the mail. And my father was actually selling copies of the Mud Actor to people. It was really, really a trip. But beauty is a mainstay and a talisman, and we have to keep changing our concepts of beauty, which is a lot of what the social struggle is about, right? In terms of the standards and who says what's beautiful and all, that's still about justice stuff too.
Yeah.
I get a lot of solace from the beauty of nature still. I grew up in the desert, the Mojave Desert, with Joshua trees and no trees. So as soon as I got to Stanford, I was like taping leaves to the window and having this sort of tripped out. I didn't have seasons growing up there. So that's still a source of great, like I say, comfort and solace for me. But these things are really, really important to try and access. I mean, every now and then I buy myself some flowers, There are chrysanthemums in my apartment, just touches that way.
And you give the extraordinary solace of the beauty of language. Cyrus Cassells, congratulations on the 2025 Jackson Prize.
Thanks so much. Thank you. Wow, thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for coming.
Thank you, Cyrus, and thank you, Pádraig. Thank you to Susan and John Jackson. Thanks to the Poets and Writers board members who are here, and to the Greene Space for hosting us. And if you are a member of Poets and Writers or a donor to Poets and Writers, thank you so much. And if you're not, you should look into that. Thank you, and have a great night.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks for coming. Thank you, Patrick.